The Giants lost their third game in a row, going to 2-5 now on the season. They fell 27-21 against the Arizona Cardinals at home, a game they were favored in like everywhere. I think they were a -3 in this game or something like that. So a game they probably should have won. These rosters were pretty even. It seemed like the Giants definitely had the upper hand because they're the home team. And unfortunately, they were not able to pull off this win. It was kind of close. They only lost by 6, obviously. They had many chances to come back and win this game. Did not happen, unfortunately. So let's get into it and see exactly how they did. And first, we will start with the defense. Now, if I told you prior to the game that Kyler Murray was going to finish 14 of 21 for 104 yards and no touchdowns, and their starting running back, David Johnson, finished with 1 carry for 2 yards, you'd probably think, hey, the Giants took care of them pretty easily. Their defense played really well. Well, that's not really the case because their backup running back, Chase Edmonds, went ballistic on this defense. So we'll get into that, obviously. So when I went back and watched the game, because I wasn't watching that closely, I did have friends over. I was watching Red Zone as well, so I had to go back and watch this entire game. And the thing that stuck out, of course, was the missed tackles once again. So DeAndre Baker missed tackles, Antoine Bethea missed tackles, Jabril Peppers. The secondaries had issues with tackles the last, 3 games especially, but basically the whole year. Chase Edmonds, huge holes to run through. I feel like any running back could have ran through those holes that he was being made for. The defensive line, I guess, was just, they're getting blocked really well. The linebackers were not doing their job either. The secondary, as we know, has a very tough time tackling. And, for all 3 of Chase Edmonds' touchdowns, he was almost untouched for all of them. It was pretty embarrassing, honestly. So that was just not what you want to see from your defense. They couldn't defend, the whole jet sweep thing where, they would send the wide receiver in motion. They do, a little touch pass or, a handoff. Or they had one with Andy Isabella on the first drive. They had one with Chase Edmonds. They had one with another, I think, Pharaoh Cooper or something like that. So the Giants cannot even defend those plays. And, Cliff Kingsbury does have a very unique offense. It's pretty fun to watch, honestly, and it works really well. So that's cool to watch, obviously. And I know Giants fans are not fans of, Pat Shurmur's offense. And seeing a guy like Cliff Kingsbury and the way his offense works is pretty fascinating, to be honest. So Chase Edmonds, as I got into before, 27 carries, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Giants made it way too easy on him. The Cardinals on third down were 7 for 15, so almost 50%. That's really not that bad. Pretty good, honestly. Much better than what the Giants did. They allowed 156 rushing yards, and they only allowed 104 passing yards. So total yards-wise, it wasn't the worst game for the Giants' defense, but when you see how many holes that Chase Edmonds had in this game, you have to go back and watch this game to see how bad the defense was actually, and it was not good. Just way too many holes for that guy to run through. Lorenzo Carter had that stupid penalty, the late hit on Kyler Murray. He was sliding, and Lorenzo Carter was coming behind him basically and just fell on top of his head. Of course, they're going to call that every time, especially for a first overall pick, so just a dumb play. The positives. So the secondary wasn't that bad in pass coverage. Tackling wasn't great, obviously, but in terms of passing defense, it wasn't bad. Kyler only had 21 attempts. I understand that. Most of them were short. He did have a couple of deep tries where he went to, one of them was for Bird, that DeAndre Baker played very well, I think, in the second quarter. That was a really nice play by DeAndre Baker. I forget, there was one to Charles Clay for 20 yards that picked up a first down against Michael Thomas. So he had a few deep throws, but for the most part, a lot of short stuff. That's really their whole offense. There's a lot of hitch and curls and just short routes and stuff like that. Yards after the catch is really what they go for. They got good pressure at times. They just couldn't, catch Kyler Murray. Obviously, I talked about how he is the quickest player, in my opinion, quarterback-wise in the NFL. Some people give me crap for it, but, I don't know what you're watching, honestly. If you don't think that guy's the quickest player, you can say Lamar Jackson. I'm not going to argue, but, I just feel like Kyler Murray is just the quickest quarterback in the league right now. So he's very tough to catch, obviously. So there were instances where O'Shane Ximines got in the backfield, Marcus Golden got in the backfield, trying to think who else, but there's a few other Giants, obviously, who got in the backfield at times on passing plays, but they couldn't bring down Kyler Murray. He was sacked twice. They probably should have sacked him more. If he wasn't as crazy elusive as he is, they probably would have sacked him more, but that's just the way it is. So they held Larry Fitzgerald to 1 catch for 12 yards. I thought that that would be an issue today based off, Grant Haley against Larry Fitzgerald. We know that Grant Haley's had issues in coverage this year so far, but they really didn't target Larry Fitzgerald that much, so I have to give credit to to Grant Haley. Now, I don't know how many times they even targeted Larry Fitzgerald, so I'd have to go back and watch that. That's why I enjoy doing the Tuesday videos, because, I get to go back and just watch everything and see what happens. Michael Thomas had the blocked punt. That was a very nice play to tie the game at 14, I believe, at the time. So that was a big play. Elijah Penny recovered it for a touchdown. So love to see that happen on special teams. It happened to the Giants against the Patriots, and now they did it to the Cardinals. So that was cool to see. The Giants usually don't block punts too many times, so that's kind of rare. But I feel like the last time they did it, honestly, it was like Rashad Jennings like 5 years ago. I don't really remember the last time the Giants blocked a punt. So that was cool, at least for a touchdown, I should say. They probably blocked punts, but not for touchdowns. So that was cool to see. The defense obviously needs work still. Can't have a running back going for 126 yards on the ground and just had way too many holes. Kyler Murray usually passes, much more than 21 times. This has to be a season low for him. So they really didn't have to pass the ball that much, though, based on how the game script went. So the secondary was not exposed too much, but, they got off easy this week. But the tackling still needs to improve, and James Betcher's job, I feel like, is not that safe at this point. Giving up 26 points is obviously not the best, so I don't know. They have to improve. I think they play Detroit next week or something, so, that offense is looking pretty good this year as well, so that's going to be a tough task, so we'll see if they improve heading into that game. So now let's get into the offense. So some of the stats on offense for this game: Daniel Jones was 22 of 35, 223 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Saquon Barkley in his return to the lineup was 18 carries, 72 yards, and 1 touchdown. Golden Tate, 6 receptions, 80 yards. Good game from him. Had a nice 4th down conversion in there as well. So the positives, there's obviously a lot more negatives here, but let's start with the positives. So Daniel Jones made some really nice throws in this game. You would specifically think of the Red Ellison throw, like up the seam. Perfect throw between the cornerback and the safety. The safety made a pretty bad play on that from what I saw, but, still, it was a really nice throw, a risky throw, but he just put it in the right spot. There were a few other throws, like short ones, but he hit the guys right in stride. They were great. So Daniel Jones really didn't play that bad, in my opinion. And, people just want to spin the narrative that Daniel Jones is not playing well and all this kind of stuff. And I even saw on Twitter someone said to me, like, oh, it's Daniel Jones' fault that he was sacked 8 times. I was like, not really. Like, when I went back and watched, like, all right, maybe you can argue that 2 out of the, 8 sacks, or maybe 3 out of the 8 sacks were his fault. But for the most part, he had no time. It was like some of them were just like shotgun play actions where like he would just fake it, and then by the time he has to pass, a guy's right in his face, and you're just like, well, what is he supposed to do? Like, I don't really understand how you could blame Daniel Jones for getting sacked so much, but, whatever. It's not my opinion. So, yeah, he looked pretty good in this game. I was encouraged for the most part. It started off rough. He had, like, negative passing yards in the first quarter, but from there on out, it got a lot better. So, I expected a better performance. I know, the rain was probably an issue in this game. The weather was not that great, but, he still had some pretty decent numbers. 223 yards is not the worst performance in the world, so I'll take it. So, Saquon looked back to normal at times. He wasn't like, vintage Saquon. Like, I think he's still a bit hampered from the injury, obviously. Like, we saw him kind of like limping at one point, and thought he might have to go out of the game, but he came back a couple plays later, so it seemed like he's all right. But, this is an injury that was supposed to take a lot longer than this, like at least like a few more weeks. So, him coming back this early is like, he's definitely not 100%, but he's good enough to play right now. So this might be something he has to deal with for, at least the next few weeks until the Giants have a bye week, and then he could rest that ankle for like, a full 2 weeks. But until then, he might be a little bit banged up, but he'll still be in the lineup though. So not Dexter Fowler. Now I'm talking about baseball. Benny Fowler and Cody Latimer, they contributed. They had, pretty nice games. I think for the most part, they probably had like 30, 40 yards. They made a few catches each in this game. So they came through on some third downs and stuff like that. So I had to give them some credit. Golden Tate, I think, is perfect for Daniel Jones. When the Giants signed him, when Dave Gettleman signed Golden Tate, and I got the notification, like 4 years, 35, 36 million, whatever it was, I was like, what the hell is he doing? Because like, this is supposed to be a rebuilding team and stuff like that. But I actually think Gettleman's pretty smart for it, because Daniel Jones' strength, especially when you watch him in college, I always say this, is the short, intermediate throws, the timing routes and stuff like that. And what better receiver to give a guy who's really good at that kind of stuff than Golden Tate? I just feel like Golden Tate is the great, a perfect receiver for a quarterback like Daniel Jones. So I really like that, how they have Golden Tate on this team, and him and Daniel Jones seem to work really well together. And honestly, that's why in my bold prediction video, if you watched that back in I guess August it was, I predicted Golden State to have the most receiving yards and receptions on this team. I thought those two would just mesh, and their games for some reason just seem to go together. So that's what I figured would happen. But unfortunately, he was suspended like right after that, so it just did not come to fruition. But yeah, you never know. Now on to the negative. So offensive line allowed 8 sacks. That's not good for any game. Chandler Jones had like 3.5 sacks in this game. He was amazing, and he was going against our tackles, Mike Remmers, Nate Solder. They weren't that great in this game, unfortunately. I mean, they definitely had their low points in this one. You expect better, especially from a guy that's paid as much as Nate Solder. Mike Remmers was due for a bad game at some point. Like, Mike Remmers was definitely playing way above than what his career had told you that he was. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, based off his career, he's not the greatest player, but he has been playing really well this year, so I guess he was due for a bad game at some point. There were holding penalties on 3 out of the 5 offensive linemen, both tackles, and then Will Hernandez as well. I think Will Hernandez's play wiped out like a 20-yard Saquon run as well, so that was pretty big. There were 2 instances in this game where Saquon Barkley was like running backwards, and I mean, that's like the one downside to Saquon Barkley is that sometimes he just doesn't know how to take like the 1 or 2 yard gain. Like, sometimes he tries to make every play like a big play, and like as a running back sometimes you have to realize like, okay, let me lose 1 or 2 yards and we'll just get on to the next play. But for some reason, Saquon Barkley in separate occasions in this game decided to try and run back like 8-10 yards to try and make something happen, but it did not happen. So it is what it is. One was a screen pass, and I feel like one was an outside run. So I mean, you just can't do that kind of stuff. It put the Giants in like a 2nd and long, 3rd and long type situation. So that sucks. Evan Engram wasn't visible today. He really didn't have that many targets. I feel like it was maybe 4 or 5 off the top of my head without looking, so could be wrong on that, but he wasn't really targeted that much. I don't know, he still seemed like a bit gimpy. He might be injured still, I really have no idea, but didn't really look like himself today. He did have that drop on the sideline that would have been like a 25-30 yard gain. Daniel Jones made a great throw on that ball, by the way, so got to haul that in for Evan Engram, but he was not there today for the most part. Benny Fowler had a drop pass at one point, and you can argue, all right, the throw was a bit behind him, but it had to be caught. I mean, for an NFL receiver, you have to catch that ball. Daniel Jones was making a nice throw on the run and waited for the perfect time to make that throw, and unfortunately, Benny Fowler could not haul that in, so you have to make that catch if you're him. Daniel Jones held the ball too long on the Chandler Jones sack and fumble, so I did say after the New England game, you have to learn based off that mistake. I mean, he had that interception. His second interception in New England last Thursday night was when he held the ball too long, and then the defender hit his elbow, and the ball stayed in bounds, and it was intercepted by the Patriots. Had a similar play today where once again a guy was coming from his right side. I don't know if he didn't see him or not. It was Chandler Jones, and basically he waited too long. He got a fumble, got the sack, and he recovered the fumble as well. So that's a killer. I mean, you would think that it's not his blind side. He'd probably see him, but I do like the fact that Daniel Jones' eyes are downfield. I like how he does not focus on the line. I felt like Eli Manning the last few years definitely worried about the line too much and looking downfield. That's how Eli used to be. And look, I prefer my quarterback doing that. I like when my quarterback has his eyes downfield looking for open receivers. I'm fine with that, but at the same time, you have to have ball security. You have to have the pocket presence and awareness to know, like, hey, a guy's coming and he's in my line of vision. So I mean, he has to work on that kind of stuff, but it's fixable. I'm not really too concerned about it, honestly. So Aldrick Rosas missed a 37-yard field goal when the Giants were down 10. Obviously could have made it a 7-point game. That sucks. The Giant highlights are actually on in the background. It's kind of funny. Chase Edmonds is running a bunch of touchdowns. But anyway, so, usually he makes those. We're used to Aldrick Rosas making, a bunch of field goals. He only missed once last year because he was injured. I think he has 2 misses now this year. So, I'm not out on Aldrick Rosas by any means. He's still one of the better kickers in the league. But, to make that a one-possession game would have been nice, but it is what it is. So here's the big thing, and everyone's arguing about it on Twitter. Everyone, again, is Pat Shurmur needs to be fired. I hear it all the time, and I just, look, I get it. I understand why people say fire Pat Shurmur. I mean, the guy doesn't know how to use challenges. He, doesn't really use his timeouts too well. Sometimes he'll run the wrong play at times and all that kind of stuff. But, what is firing Pat Shurmur going to do? I mean, I really don't get it. And the worst part, I did tweet this as well. When people say fire Pat Shurmur, you don't even, give us a replacement. You're just saying, oh, fire this guy. And, well, who's going to replace him? That's just the worst part about it. I hate when people say fire someone, but then you don't offer a replacement candidate. You know what I mean? It just makes no sense to me. So I hate seeing that. But the situation was a 3rd and 18, obviously. There was, 3 minutes left in the game. And it was a Third and 18, as I said, they were on their own 30 with 3:10 to go. Okay, so Pat Shurmur admitted in his press conference he was going to go for it on fourth down. So basically, there were 2 plays that go 18 yards. Now, from his perspective, and this makes sense to me, it was going to be like soft coverage, like a cover 2 or something like that. So the defense was going to be off, and there was going to be a lot of room to run the ball. So in that perspective, I understand where he's coming from. I feel like people are a bit too hard on it. I understand I back up Pat Shurmur all the time, but I understand where he's coming from in this situation. Let's just hypothetically say the draw play works. Instead of being a 3rd and 15, let's say Saquon Barkley picks up 9 or 10 yards on that play, and then it's all of a sudden a 4th and 8 or a 4th and 9 and manageable. You know what I mean? Pat Shurmur was not banking on a 4th and 15 happening. He wanted to get 8 to 10 yards out of that play and make it a more manageable 4th down situation, which is fine. But at the same time, you probably should pass the ball there. But you're trying to outsmart the defense. I get it. And even the Cardinals did that to us in one situation. It was like a 3rd and 12, and then Chase Edmonds ran a draw and picked up a first down. So these things happen. The draws usually don't work, especially for the Giants. But they weren't even trying to pick up a first down there. They were just trying to get in better field position and make the 4th down more manageable. He was going for it on 4th down regardless. You might as well treat it as a 2nd and long. And I know analytics tell you on 2nd and long, don't run the ball. But at the same time, if the defense is playing way off and playing prevent defense, sometimes you just got to try it. And, I don't want to defend the guy too much, but I see where he's coming from. You guys know I'm a logical person. I try to see both sides on everything. I see where Pat Shurmur's coming from. Is it a fireable offense? No. Has he done it more than once? Yes. But at the same time, you fire Pat Shurmur. Okay, what's going to happen? Is the defensive talent going to improve all of a sudden? No. Is the offensive line going to block all of a sudden? No. Pat Shurmur's not perfect, I'll admit it, but firing him just solves nothing. It really, I just don't get it. What is firing him going to do? I said before on Twitter, this problem starts from the top, and you guys know I'm not a Gettleman lover. It has to do with the talent on the field. As part of it has to do with the defensive coordinator as well. James Betcher has to be the first one out the door, not Pat Shurmur. And, you have a rookie quarterback. Why would you bring in a new offensive coordinator / head coach after 1 year of having Daniel Jones as your starting quarterback? That would make no sense to me. And here's the thing. You can whine about it all you want, but Pat Shurmur is not going anywhere this season. There's no way he's getting fired in the middle of the season. Unless he does something, terrible, breaks the law kind of terrible, not going anywhere. Don't even, there's no point in even saying it or just even bringing out the idea of fire Pat Shurmur. Some people, I've heard some people say fire Pat Shurmur and make James Betcher the head coach. What would that even do? The defense is more of a problem right now, and you really want Daniel Jones to go from one offensive coordinator to another in his rookie year? That would make no sense to me. Just give Pat Shurmur the rest of this year. He's not perfect, and people always bring up his record. His record as a head coach sucks. Have you seen the rosters he's had? Can we at least be a little bit logical? He was with the Brandon Weeden Cleveland Browns. Brandon Weeden's a great quarterback you can definitely build around and win with. Okay. And then he's with the rebuilding Giants last year and this year. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm sure Pat Shurmur was definitely supposed to make the playoffs every year with those Browns and Giants rosters. That makes a lot of sense to me. But I really don't get where people are coming from. So give Pat Shurmur the rest of this year. He's not going anywhere. I can promise you that, right? I usually don't promise things, but I can promise you Pat Shurmur is not getting fired during the season. Maybe after the season. I still don't see it happening, but maybe. There's a possibility if the season definitely just goes off the rails and the Giants go 3-13. But I don't think he's going anywhere. They don't want, Daniel Jones' pick. We say it's all Gettleman. I think Pat Shurmur had a lot to do with it as well. Pat Shurmur definitely wanted Daniel Jones, and he's a perfect quarterback for his system. So why are you going to give up on a guy that Pat Shurmur wanted for his system after 1 year? That makes no sense. Pat Shurmur's there for the long run, whether you like it or not. And look, he's not my favorite. He's not my favorite coach. I like Tom Coughlin more, I'll admit it. But at the same time, he's not going anywhere. People think Lincoln Riley is walking through the door next year. Why would Lincoln Riley leave that program? Why? He's making $6 million a year, producing Heisman candidates year after year, Heisman winners year after year, now a Heisman candidate. And if anything, he's going to the Cowboys if Jason Garrett gets fired. So don't even talk about him going to the Giants. It's just not going to happen. So Give Pat Shurmur one more year. I know he's not perfect. I know some of you guys despise him, but give him one more year. This roster is not set up to win, and I knew this would happen. I absolutely knew this would happen based off how Giants fans are and just how New York fans are in general. They want results now. And people say I'm impatient because I'm young and I've been called impatient before and I need to be more patient with Gettleman, but some of you guys are just even worse. I have patience with this team. I was not expecting the playoffs until next year. Next year is a real test. Dave Gettleman's going to have Eli Manning off the books. He's going to have Janoris Jenkins probably off the books. Hopefully Alec Ogletree off the books. Odell's dead cap off the books. All that kind of stuff. You're going to have a lot of money next year. Red Ellison, another guy off the books. You're going to have a lot of money to sign defensive talent. And hopefully this will be like 2016 once again, where the Giants went out and signed Janoris, Snacks, and Vernon, and then all of a sudden had a really good defense. Hopefully next offseason is a similar situation to that. That's what we need. But right now, I don't care who your head coach is. You're not winning with this roster. You're just not. It's a rookie quarterback. People expect Daniel Jones to do what he did in Tampa every game. Not happening. It does not happen. Rookie quarterbacks don't do this kind of stuff. It's happened maybe 2 or 3 times out of all the rookie quarterbacks that have started in the NFL. I'm sorry. He's going to have mistakes. He's going to make mistakes, and that kind of stuff happens. So give Shurmur more time. Have some patience. If Shurmur sucks next year, I will be with you guys on that. I will say this guy needs to go. He's not made for it, but give him one more year, all right? Once he starts winning games and there's a better defense for him, you guys are going to be like, oh, Pat Shurmur's not that bad because, winning creates happiness. And when there's losing, there's just a bunch of turmoil and people just want to, just be mad and point the blame at somebody. And the most logical answer is always the head coach. So give him some time. Give him next year. If he sucks at coaching next year, I'll be with you guys. But for now, I'm giving Pat Shurmur more time, giving him next year. There's going to be a better roster here next year. There's going to be playoff expectations next year. If you expected to make the playoffs and go 10-6 this year, I don't know what to tell you. That's just not realistic. Be realistic. The Giants this year were a 7-9, 8-8 type of team, 9-7 if everything went correct. Everything had to go perfect. Maybe they're 6-10. I really don't know. But between 6 and 8 wins was definitely what the Giants were going to do this year. If you expected more, that's on you. But I came on here before the season and said probably 7-9. I went through the whole schedule and said 7-9. And some of you did not agree with that. I got a lot of crazy ass comments saying, "Oh, we're going 11-5. We're going 10-6." I'm just like, no. It's not happening this year. Maybe next year. It depends who they get. If Daniel Jones develops and becomes a great quarterback, that could happen next year. Maybe they sign some great defenders as well. That could happen. So I'm not trying to poo-poo the whole thing. There's a chance the Giants make the playoffs next year. It depends what happens in the offseason and the draft, obviously. They need to add some good players here. This roster is not playoff material, especially with a rookie quarterback. So don't put it all on Pat Shurmur. Part of it goes on Gettleman as well. I know people, for some reason, love Gettleman but hate Shurmur, even though part of it's a correlation because it's his roster. But whatever. Look. The Giants running a draw on 3rd and 18 in this situation is not going to ruin the whole season. They're not missing the playoffs because of that call. So I get where he's coming from, and that's all I got to say about it. So give the guy next year. So this video is definitely going on for way longer than I expected to, but I just saw it on Twitter the entire evening, and I was like, shut up already. He's not going anywhere. Just give the guy more time. So sorry for the rant. If you enjoyed it, then you're welcome, but that's basically all I have to say. So I will talk to you guys, I guess, for the film review video on Tuesday. There's probably going to be some interesting stuff to see on there, and we'll see how bad the offensive line was and some more missed tackles on defense and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'll talk to you guys then. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.